There's a version of your life that only exists if you feel like doing the work. You've probably said it before. I'll start investing when I feel more focused. I'll budget seriously when I'm in the right mindset. I'll build that side income when motivation hits. And it makes sense. We've been taught that progress begins with inspiration, that big changes require big energy, that discipline follows motivation. But here's the quiet truth. If you wait to feel motivated before you act, you lose years. Not dramatically, quietly. Most people don't fail financially because they lack intelligence. They fail because they treat consistency like a mood. And moods are unstable. One week, you feel ambitious. You track expenses. You read about investing. You imagine a better future. The next week, work is stressful. You're tired. You scroll instead. The budget app stays unopened. The automatic transfer never gets set up. Nothing catastrophic happens. But nothing compounds either. And wealth, at its core, is compounding behavior. We like to believe that successful people wake up driven every day. They don't. They just remove the requirement to feel inspired. There's a difference between emotion and discipline. Emotion says, I'll act when I feel ready. Discipline says, I act because it's time. One is unstable. The other is boring. And boring is powerful. Because consistency, not intensity, builds wealth quietly over time. Think about investing. If you only invest when you're excited about the market, you'll probably buy when headlines are optimistic and prices are high. When the market dips and fear takes over, motivation disappears. So you stop contributing. Maybe you even sell. But consistent investing, the kind that doesn't depend on how you feel, ignores mood entirely. It just shows up every month, every paycheck, quietly. That's how compounding works, not through bursts, through repetition. The same is true for income growth. You don't build skills because you feel inspired once. You build them because you practice when you don't feel like it. You apply for roles even when rejection feels possible. You negotiate even when it's uncomfortable. If you wait until confidence arrives first, you wait too long. Confidence follows action, not the other way around. Here's where it becomes psychological. Your brain loves comfort. Motivation usually appears when something feels new, exciting, or urgent. But most financial progress is neither. It's repetitive. Tracking spending isn't thrilling. Automating savings isn't glamorous. Reviewing your investments isn't dramatic. So your brain labels them low-reward tasks. And low-reward tasks get postponed. Not because you're lazy, because your biology prefers stimulation over stability. But wealth prefers stability. There's also an emotional trap in waiting. When you rely on motivation, you subconsciously tell yourself, I'm the kind of person who needs to feel ready. And that identity sticks. If you miss a week of budgeting, you think, I just wasn't in the right mindset. If you skip investing 1 month, you say, I'll double down when I'm more focused. Years pass like this, not in chaos, in delay. And delay is expensive, not in dramatic losses, in missed compounding. Let's make this practical. Imagine 2 people. One invests $300 every month automatically, regardless of mood. They don't time the market, they don't obsess over headlines, it's just part of their system. The other invests only when they feel confident or financially ahead. Some months they invest more. Some months, nothing at all. 10 years later, the first person likely has more, not because they were smarter, because they were consistent. Compounding rewards regularity. It doesn't reward emotional spikes. The same principle applies to debt payoff. If you only pay extra when you feel disciplined, progress stalls whenever life feels heavy. But if you automate even a small additional payment, the balance shrinks quietly in the background. You don't need to feel powerful every day. You need a system that runs when you don't. And that's the real shift. Stop relying on emotion. Start designing systems. This doesn't mean ignoring how you feel. It means not letting feelings be the gatekeeper of action. Motivation is useful for starting. Discipline is what continues. And discipline doesn't have to be extreme. It can be simple. Automatic transfers, scheduled reviews, a recurring calendar reminder, tiny behaviors that happen whether you're excited or not. Over time, That identity shift is quiet, but powerful. There's another layer here. Waiting for motivation often hides fear. If you delay investing, maybe it's not about energy. Maybe it's about uncertainty. If you delay building income, maybe it's not about inspiration. Maybe it's about rejection. Saying, "I'm not motivated yet," feels safer than saying, "I'm afraid to try." But fear doesn't dissolve with time. It dissolves with exposure. Small actions reduce fear faster than waiting ever will. And here's the irony. Action creates motivation more reliably than motivation creates action. Once you invest consistently for a few months, you feel momentum. Once you track spending for a while, clarity replaces anxiety. Once you see debt shrinking, energy rises naturally. But the spark usually appears after movement, not before. So if you keep waiting for the spark, you stay still. And stillness is where years disappear. The turning point is simple. Decide that your future isn't dependent on how you feel today. You can feel tired and still automate savings. You can feel uncertain and still invest a small amount. You can feel unmotivated and still open the budget app for 5 minutes. Discipline doesn't mean intensity. It means repetition. And repetition builds trust with yourself. Every time you follow through, even in a small way, you reinforce the identity of someone consistent. That identity compounds just like money does. If you zoom out far enough, wealth rarely comes from dramatic bursts of effort. It comes from habits that look almost boring up close. People assume there's a secret. Usually, the secret is automation, consistency, saying no to emotional swings, letting time do the heavy lifting. You don't need to feel inspired every week. You need to remove friction. Make the right behavior easier than the wrong one. Set up the transfer. Schedule the review. Reduce the decision-making required. Waiting for motivation feels harmless. It feels temporary. But if you zoom out 5 years, you might see dozens of small delays. Investments not made. Skills not built. Debt not reduced as quickly as it could have been. Not because you were incapable, because you were waiting to feel different. And feelings are unpredictable. Time isn't. The good news is this: you don't need a personality overhaul. You don't need extreme discipline. You need systems that run on average days. Because most of life is average days, not dramatic breakthroughs. If you can make one consistent financial move, even small, and let it repeat automatically, you've already separated yourself from the cycle of waiting. You've stopped asking, "Do I feel like it?" and started asking, "Is it scheduled?" That's a subtle shift, but it changes everything. Because wealth doesn't grow from bursts of motivation. It grows from years of quiet consistency. And the sooner you stop waiting to feel ready, the sooner those years start working for you instead of against you. Not louder, not flashier, just steadier. And steady over time is what builds freedom.